So guys, today for something a little bit different, we're going to be looking at slides, how to measure, how to choose, look at some recommendations, and hopefully help you think about how to get your first or second slide. Okay, let's go to the lab. Right then, so here we are in the lab, and the first thing you have to do is choose which finger you want to play slide guitar with. Most players will either choose their ring finger or their pinky. My favorite two players, Ry Cooder and Mick Taylor, both use their pinky, so that's the route I went early on. But this is personal preference, and in fact, people use their first fingers and second fingers as well. So there's no right answer, just choose the finger that seems most comfortable. I would add, though, that if you wanted to ever venture in the world of behind the slide playing, then the pinky is the best choice because it frees up 3 fingers. So choose the finger first. Once you've chosen a finger, then you need to start measuring. Now, some would say that you actually need to think about material first, and that's probably a fair point. But I want to bookmark that and talk about that a little bit later and compare brass to glass or metal to glass, because they're sort of the two main areas. Instead, I'd like to just talk about trying to get the right fit, and to do that, there's 3 measurements we need. 1 is the length of the slide, 2 is the inside diameter or the inside of the slide, and the third one is the wall, like the thickness of the glass or the material used to make the slide. So Jim Dunlop, who make a huge range of sort of popular slides, they have a nice chart which I'll put on screen that sort of equates ring size, and ring size is a bit hairy. It changes through different regions around the world. I actually have a set of the rings that you actually measure your finger with, and it just confused me because it wasn't the same as America, and it was very confusing. So this seems to be their own system. So basically the actual measurements equate to one another. So if you see down the one side you've got ring size, and then the other you've got the actual measurements, and they even include a little ruler you can cut out. But so if you're playing with your pinky, if we have a look here, this is going to be sort of the biggest end. So this is where you'll be measuring from, this sort of the lowest point of your finger. So if you've got a ruler like this, it's going to be, mine's about 19 millimeters, right? Or if you've got a wraparound tape, which is actually probably a little bit better, you're going to be sort of doing something like this, and I'm going to be getting about 59, which is about ring size 9.5 according to Jim Dunlop. So I find like this is a nice place to start, just so you're not wasting your money immediately by buying something that doesn't fit, which I've done several times and continue to do, because I bought a couple of slides the other day that don't fit me. This will get you on the sort of on the straight and narrow, so to speak. So first thing, you want to measure for the inside fit, and once you've done that, then you need to make a couple of other decisions, and the second one will be how long you want your slide to be. Some people actually rest the slide up here on the knuckle of this pinky or whatever finger, which is completely fine to do. I mean, I prefer to have the whole slide and the whole length of the slide. So assuming you're going to be just sort of having it through the whole length of the finger, which seems to make most sense to me. So if we just take a slide, this is a Jim Dunlop 215, which this is the slide that Sonny Landreth uses apparently. Well, he does use, probably amongst others as well. This one here is rated as sort of medium and heavy, sort of, it's Pyrex glass, good quality, no problems. I do find this for me, and my fingers are quite long. I mean, if you can see that, I don't know. It's hard to compare, but this, I feel like it's a little bit too long, just slightly, and also a little bit too wide. So the inside wall of this Jim Dunlop 215, which is, again, it's a nice sort of benchmark slide. The wall measurement is, the internal diameter measurement, I should say, is about 20.1 millimeters. So if we were going to become very fancy, I would take this here and measure that to confirm it. Yeah, about 20.5 according to these calipers here. So that is a little bit big for my finger. So I'm about a ring size 9.5. I just measured, I was about 59. So depending on where you sort of get on that scale, this may or may not be a better size. Now, what are we trying to sort of look for? Well, I like to have some movement at the top, but I don't really like much movement at the bottom. So this one you can sort of see, I'm not sure if you can see, it's moving at the bottom and it's moving quite a lot at the top. Now, I use these all the time, I actually quite like them, but if we're talking about really trying to find the right slide, the right size, this one would be too big, both in the inside measurement and in the length measurement for me, even though this is a slide I use and quite enjoy, as I say. So I think, for example, if I compare the length of that to the length of this one, which is an Ernie Ball, this is sort of the packet. I'm not sure if you've seen these. These are a little bit harder to find, but still pretty common. The glass slide medium, and this one comes to here. These Ernie Ball ones, I'll talk about each of these sort of main brands that I have at hand in turn, but this one here, I prefer this type of length. Maybe a tad too short, but again, it has almost identical inside measurement. Maybe slightly better fitting. I think this is 19.7, just for interest. Hang on, where are we here? So what is it, 9, 20? That's coming up to 21, so that's actually bigger. Let's have a look. Yeah, it is too, yeah. So this is actually bigger here. So I prefer the length of it, but the inside is getting more ungainly. But again, this is a slide I do use. The one actually that's probably the better fit is the Ernie Ball small, which is rather nice fit. Let's just check the measurement here. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but 19.7. Yeah, see, I think I'm about 19.5. This is about 19.69 here. And there's no taper on this, so this should be the same on both sides. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so that's length. That's length. So basically, this is the first decision you have to kind of make. How long do I want the slide? Now, the Ernie Balls are a little bit shorter than the Jim Dunlops, sort of generally speaking. But I think this one here, for example, the small Ernie Ball, this is enough to cover all 6 strings. So this is plenty, right? This is enough to get the job done. Even if you're playing a whole, you know, all 6 strings, this will cover them. But it's maybe needing a little bit more precision than, say, this one here, this 215 Jim Dunlop, which is longer. Obviously, you need to be less precise. You know, anywhere's good enough to get all strings. So that's one decision to make. How long do you want it? Well, basically, once you've got the fit and once you've got the length, then the third part of the sort of measurement trilogy is the wall. So how thick is the wall going to be? Now, it's physics. You basically want more mass. The more mass you have, the more sustain you'll have. And this is why a glass slide like this, this is the Jim Dunlop 202. And I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me open it. Unboxingtherapy.com. What's going on here? Okay. ASMR. So this one here, it weighs almost nothing, and quite a snug fit. In fact, too snug. You can see that they're bunching my skin there. So this is too snug. But the real problem with this one is it is very, very thin. That is got a 2 mil wall. So if you play this, you'll notice that sort of the notes cutting out, sort of an obvious lack of sustain. So you want to steer away from something like this that looks like this, and instead go for something like this. I mean, you need mass, especially with glass. With brass, it's not such a big deal, in fact. So you want basically a good generous wall thickness, something like this. If we just give this one a quick measure, this is 4.25. So you want at least sort of 4 mil on the wall. Otherwise, you're just going to sort of make it just a touch harder for yourself, and why do that? So that is the 3 measurements. One, you've got to measure your finger and try to get something that's sort of snug but not too tight. So I can sort of twist it without twisting the skin, as was happening with the other one. And I can move my finger up here. So this one, again, is slightly too big, but it's still, you know, a decent fit. Okay, so that's the first 3 things. Now, what I think I'll do now is have a look at some of the brands just generally, and just make some sort of recommendations, if you will. So I think the first recommendation is probably to go with these guys, Jim Dunlop. I mean, they've got such a good range of things, and they've got that sort of the chart where you can measure and you can feel confident because they're not handmade. There'll be no variation, pretty much. I've never found it to be sort of any variation, really. So you can really depend on them being predictable, and you can depend on them working fine. So, like I said before, they're a little bit longer, than I think the Ernie Ball. I find the Ernie Ball ones. These are the 3 Ernie Ball. This is the small, medium, and large in the Ernie Ball line. And then even the 215, you see, it comes out longer. So the small, medium, large, and the Ernie Ball. I mean, I really like these ones, and they've got a nice wall thickness as well. But they're a little bit shorter. So if you've got shorter fingers, you might want to consider Ernie Ball instead of Jim Dunlop. Although I think Jim Dunlop has so many that you'll probably be able to find the right length. You just sort of find something that suits. So these are probably the first ones, because they're just so easy to find. I mean, Jim Dunlop stuff is everywhere. You can get it on Amazon with free shipping, and they're $8 and $9 a slide. You know, obviously you break the odd one, but they're really good, and kind of it's a no-brainer, really. Once you feel like, I don't know, this might be something I like to do, playing slide, I want to try and get something else and maybe explore some other options. Rockslide is a good one. Rockslide do a slide that most of their slides have this cut around the bottom. So what you do here, if you see that, the way it fits on there, it sort of moves across, and it's sort of slightly more ergonomic than maybe some other ones. And I do like this, although every time I put it down, that happens. But that's just me, maybe. This is also tapered, and I think this is very good because obviously you have the increased, you notice the thickness of the glass. It's 6.16 mil at the top. That's very thick glass. And down the bottom, not so much, at about 4.8. But the problem here for me is this is a medium Rockslide. And I bought all of them trying to find one that fit properly. I even tried the smaller ones, trying to have them up here on the top of the knuckle. But in fact, I couldn't find one that fit. I actually ordered a large, hoping that would be just a little bit bigger, because this is just a little bit too tight, and I have no movement in this part, which I don't like. Also, I find it a little bit too short. It looks a little bit comic with this. Yeah, so it doesn't quite fit. I find this too short and too narrow as well, just not enough internal diameter. I did order a large, but they sent me an extra large by mistake, and I was never able to get that changed, so I've still got an extra large Rockslide. So if you live in Hong Kong, feel free to come and get it. So that's a shame. I do feel like I would still like to try the large, because this is a denser glass. The thing about these Jim Dunlop slides is they're Pyrex, and they're sort of not that dense. I mean, I'll weigh everything later just to show you, not too much later, but I will weigh everything. And I find like these ones, you do get more sustain out of these Rockslides, and it is actually quite noticeable. So, I mean, Rockslide is, and they do make, I mean, this is clear, this is the same medium. They also make, this is their rather nice carry container. This is, I think, a small, which sort of goes there. That didn't fit me either. And the extra large was comically big. So that was Rockslide. I still use that occasionally. But then, just maybe a couple of months ago, I found another supplier called Diamond Slides out of the UK. And basically, I mean, they hand make their slides, and the sort of the fit and the customization is next level, really, certainly compared to Jim Dunlop and Ernie Ball. Ernie Ball is probably the least range, smallest range. Rockslide's got a few, but basically it seems to be small, medium, large, extra large. Whereas Diamond Slides, you go back and forth with the guy Ian, and you really customize. So basically, if you've gone through and done your homework and measured out, and you have a really good idea about what you're looking for in terms of the right fit, how much comfort, how much movement you like the slide to have, and how much sort of length, and also obviously the thickness, how thick you like your slides. Once you've got basic measurements, then I think the recommendation would be to go through to Ian at Diamond Slides and have them make you one, because this, I mean, you can't feel, I mean, I'm going to weigh this, in fact, right now, just to demonstrate the fact, but this is very dense, very heavy glass, hand-blown glass, and when you play with it, it seems to just have this very smooth quality to it, and the sustain is noticeable, and they're beautiful slides. And I've got another order on the way because I'm sort of petrified of breaking them. Let's just have a quick look here at some of the weights of these slides, just to get an idea of the sort of the mass. Let's start with the 215, 47 grams. This 202 one with these very thin walls, okay, 15 grams. I thought that might not weigh anything, so there's a surprise. This is the Ernie Ball Small, 38, Ernie Ball Medium, 43, and Ernie Ball Large, 47. Just so you get a sense of the sort of the mass that Pyrex has. Now, if we go to the Rockslide, so that's 46. Now, I guess in some way that's similar to this one here, which is the small Ernie Ball, and that's 38. Plus, this has got a sort of a cut out of the side. So this is quite dense glass as well, 46 versus 38. So maybe the other Rockslide's probably something similar. But then if we go to this Supreme slide from Diamond Slides, you'll notice 78.5 grams, which is, you know, this one here you'd expect in a way off them to be similar. This is thicker, this is longer, but 47 to 78 Pyrex versus hand-blown glass. I mean, that's a big difference. So I guess it won't surprise you then that this has a lot more sustain. So I think this is one of the sort of, you can have these in any colors. I think it does depend on supply, and I think Ian has different allotments coming in at different colors and different shades. So, you know, you have to be patient and just try and sort of, you know, communicate with him what you're after, and then he'll eventually give you basically what will be your dream slide, as long as you know what your preferences are as far as measurements. What he also has, he threw this in to the order. I was trying to get another one, but this one he thought I might like this. This is a bottle of some description. Maybe somebody knows what this is. He will, but I don't. It's also tapered, which I actually quite like. You see that taper there? And this here, as far as the fit, it is perfect. Right? I'm actually terrified of dropping this one. It is the perfect length, just a little bit of finger on the top, and it is a perfect fit. This is like 19.4 internal diameter at the bottom and then flaring slightly at the top, just giving me a little bit of wiggle room. So this is what's possible. You give in your measurements and you basically get exactly what you're after. And also this is, what's happened to my little machine here? Let's get them on again. And hang on, this is good viewing. Okay, 66.5. So this is also another solid piece of glass, but this is from a bottle, right? So obviously they're hand blown in a way. Will they be hand blown? Probably not. But I also asked Diamond Slides to for one of the Rycuda 3-inch slides. I mean, this is a monster, right? Even with my long little pinky finger, this is pretty long. So 75 grams as well. And this has quite a sort of a high center of mass. I think Rycuda loves these long slides. You hear his vibrato. The sort of the slide itself has a bit of inertia when you're using it. So I think part of the sound he has is these long glass bottleneck slides that he uses. So I wanted to experiment with that. And you can sort of replicate, get a little bit closer to his vibrato style with one of these long diamond neck ones. So Ian does have a lot of stuff over there at Diamond Neck, and the customization is just really, really, really good. So I highly recommend making contact. I mean, he's a great guy to talk to, and a true scholar and a gentleman. So that is kind of the run of the range here, guys. We've got Jim Dunlop. That should be your go-to first, I think, or Ernie Ball if the fingers are maybe a little bit shorter. And then maybe try Rockslide if you get a good fit with Rockslide, you're gold. And then when you're after sort of that really customized perfect slide, then reach out to Diamond Slides and you'll be sorted. Now, material, glass, we've all been talking about glass, but in terms of the fit and the measurements, this is all sort of transferable to the metals as well, with one exception, the wall. You don't need the thickness to get the same level of sustain, although you do get more with a very thick wall. I've got one slide somewhere, this monster brass slide. I mean, it's ridiculous to use, but you do get quite a lot of sustain. And they've also got some quite nice ones like this as well, which has a nice taper on it. This is the 232. But I think if you just get a brass slide that's more or less the same, this one here is I think it's a 9, which is rated at 59, which is just a ring size 9, that is. So it's a little bit snug for me, this one. But I think for brass, you're fine, I think, with something with thinner walls. And unless you're using sort of acoustic guitars, I think a little bit more mass does actually help. Okay, so that's a bit of an overview. I've got no idea how helpful this has been, but I've quite enjoyed myself. What I'll do next is I'll play a couple of clips and just record perhaps this little guy here, the Jim Dunlop 202, which is quite cute, really. But you might hear some problems with the sustain. If you don't, then I take back everything I've said, and then compare it maybe to this one, the 215, which is sort of a classic, and then maybe one of these Diamond Slides as well. Okay, so let's go on to that. So let's have a listen to a few of these slides now. Let's start here with the Jim Dunlop 202, this very thin-walled one that I kind of recommended against, and perhaps you'll see why. This is a Fender Jag here with flat wound strings, so you'll notice there's just sort of a bit more of a mellow sound to it, perhaps without the sustain of normal round wounds, but I'll stay on this guitar so you'll be able to hear relatively the difference between them all. So let's just have a listen to this one. Now maybe you can hear that just the way, first of all, there's a strange sort of attack on the front end, and the sustain is really lacking. So there it is. It's quite hard to sort of to play in a way. You just get sort of no help at all. The note just sort of dies in the arse a bit. I mean, this is the 12th fret as well, where this is sort of the most friendly place for like extra harmonics as well. So if we play down here, there's just almost nothing going on. Let's compare that now with, let's go to the other end of the spectrum here. So this is the diamond slide. This is the one that's cut from some bottle or of some description that I'm not sort of sure about. But if you just compare to the previous one. First of all, you'll notice sort of the bass coming back on board, and also perhaps the sustain. Sort of very balanced, nice harmonics. And also one thing that doesn't really come across in a video is just the comfort, the level of comfort, and this sort of very secure fit, and the sort of the weight of this is just really sort of, that is meaningful, and you can't really demonstrate that just with a sound sample. But it's very much there. So I mean, this is fantastic. And let's compare to the good old 215 from Jim Dunlop again. And this is probably your maybe recommended first pick, I suppose. And you'll notice that the bass sort of is here, unlike the first one. Harmonics good. Perhaps not as much. Also, this, it's hard to explain, but I feel playing the diamond slides, there's more, there's a certain smoothness. This is the other one. This is the supreme one, which is even heavier than the last. There's a certain smoothness when you play them, a certain... very rich harmonics, lovely sustain. So this is the diamond slide, and that's sort of all I really wanted to say, and just to give you a sort of a sound, but it's really highlighting what happens when you use this kind of thin glass, you know, just how it dies away, and it's sort of the main takeaway is to avoid the thin glass. And you know, the Jim Dunlop, this one here, the 215, absolutely fine, really. I mean, on record, you know, recording, listening to it back, it's not that discernible. I mean, there is more sort of sustain and a little bit more, what would you call it, sort of harmonic content, I think, in this more dense material. But for me, it's more about the fit. You know, when you really have a good slide fitting well, you do play a bit better, I think, I hope. So let's finish, and any questions, do let me know. I do hope this was useful. I apologize if I rambled too much, but never mind. See you on the next one, guys.